Hey, welcome to my Permanently Filipino playlist where I basically talk about everything that my husband and I did to become permanent residents in the Philippines. So we have officially achieved our goal of becoming permanent residents in the Philippines within our first year of living in the Philippines. So this video, I'm counting this as my last video for this playlist for now, because it's all of the questions that I had asked about the 13G visa. Now, I had to go to multiple sources to get answers because there isn't a lot of information out there, like all in one spot. And I'm going to front load it by saying that questions that I had might not be questions that you have, and responses that I received might not be the responses that you need to hear. So you might have to do additional research, but I'm going to try to answer as many questions as completely as I possibly can. That might give you a good idea if a 13G visa works for you or not. Okay, so let's get started. So my first question was, who's eligible to hold a 13G visa? Now, I am a former Filipino who's naturalized in another country. I qualify. Are there other people who might fit in that category and with a different scenario? Possibly. But for me, I was born in the Philippines. I have a Filipino birth certificate. I was adopted at the age of 3, and I moved to the United States. And after I retired, after 30 years of teaching, my husband and I decided to live our retirement years abroad, and we chose the Philippines. And we thought, by getting permanent residency, this would be perfect because now we can live in the United States or we can live in the Philippines. And it gives us options. We might even consider residency in another Southeast Asian country. We don't know, but for now, the 13G visa worked for us because I'm a former Filipino naturalized in another country. My next question was, what's the benefit of the 13G visa? Now, that took a lot of research, and I'm going to say that all of my responses are based on either from the Bureau of Immigration itself or from people who've worked with clients because they assisted them in getting a 13G visa. It's not an opinion or some testimony or some YouTube page like mine. It's actually because I talked to somebody who's actually helped people seeking a 13G visa through the Bureau of Immigration because the Bureau of Immigration answered my question, or a visa agency or a law office answered my question because they help clients. I wouldn't trust everything a YouTube playlist completely. So make sure you always follow up. I don't want to say stop this video and go find somebody else to answer your question. Start with a YouTube video. Get at least a hint of some information and then confirm it elsewhere. I started realizing I won't have anyone listen to me if I keep talking like that. So anyway, this video will give you a good starting place to get your thoughts together of what questions you might ask and what responses you might hear. Just confirm them all through somebody who is way more knowledgeable than me. Anyway, what's the benefit of holding a 13G visa? So I'm going to read this because, again, these came from people who told me the answers because they work with actual clients who needed a 13G visa. So, number one, it allows former Philippine citizens Filipino citizens to become permanent residents indefinitely. Indefinitely. I love the word indefinitely. Spouses and dependents are included. You need a marriage license to make sure your spouse, birth certificates of your children to make sure your children are included in that. So always carry that with you. My husband is not a fan of being called a dependent. I'm just going to tell you. The first time he heard somebody say that, he's just not a fan. So anyway, no visa deposit is required. Unlike, for example, the SRRV visa, you need a visa deposit. For a 13G visa, you do not need a visa deposit, which is awesome. I think if you did it, and I am not an expert on an SRRV visa, and it ranges from 10,000 US dollars to 20,000 US dollars. But I will admit my husband is considering that. He and I talked about this. So if he decides to get an SRRV visa down the road, maybe 2 or 3 years from now, I'll add to this playlist. But for right now, again, this is the last video for this playlist unless my husband gets an SRRV. So there's travel tax exemption and duty-free shopping privileges. So other things that would be a benefit: you have the right to live and work in the Philippines. Now, I'm retired. I already said I'm not working. I do have a tutoring business. I tried to shut it down, to be honest with you, but I have one student who begged me to keep her as a student. So I have one student for my tutoring business. And no, I'm not adding any more students. I just have been her tutor now for like 5 years, and she's in middle school, so she knew absolutely no English, and now I am her tutor. Anyway, that's the only work that I'm doing other than volunteer work, and that's something that I'm going to talk about in a future video, because I'm trying to become a volunteer in different places and all the steps that I needed to do to become a volunteer. Because in my mind, as much as the Philippines has given to us as a couple and welcomed us into the Philippines, I want to make sure that I give back to the community as much as I possibly can. So volunteering in my community is very important. So if I do decide to work, since I have the ability and now I guess the possible legal right to work in the Philippines, I need to then work on getting work permits and possibly a work visa, specifically through the Bureau of Immigration. I'm not going to address that. That's a future video if it happens. Chances are it won't happen. I can definitely purchase real estate. Now, under my Balikbayan visa, I could purchase real estate. Possibly because now I'm a permanent resident, I can purchase a little more real estate because my husband and I do want to buy property and we do want to build a home. But that's a future video, but at least can now buy property. Because I'm the Filipino. My husband cannot buy property. I can buy property because I am the former Filipino. Making sure it's clear. Now, if you do decide to buy property, make sure you get a lawyer and real estate agent, and make sure you do investigative work to make sure they are reputable. Okay, we have access to public services. Public services like healthcare, education, Social Security. Again, I have to go then through each of those different agencies to find out more information if I'm interested. The only one that I looked into was PhilHealth, and there's an application we have to fill out, and I think I researched it was 15,000 pesos for a year. to cover a year. I think that's the premium contribution. So, but either way, do additional research if that's something that you're interested in. We already have, through my pension, I already have insurance. So then my job right now is looking for a hospital and doctors that take our insurance, and if they don't take our insurance, what's the process we need to do to make sure that we pay for our medical services? How do we pay for our medical services? How do we get refunded? All of that. That is a possible future video, now that I think of it. Anyway, on with this video. So, we can travel in and out of the Philippines. Now, before, under the Balikbayan visa, my husband had to be attached to my hip. He had to be with me. Like, there's this umbilical cord attached to us. Wherever I went, he had to go. Not under the 13G visa. He can come and go as he pleases. He can go to the United States without me. I can go to the United States without him, and he will be fine in the Philippines without me, which makes the flexibility so much nicer, especially when we want to go see family and friends, if we want to go travel and make other plans with family and friends to travel into another country, either especially if we're apart, if we want to be apart. But my husband and I basically do everything together, so I'm not quite, other than this other than this YouTube channel. But we're pretty much together. I would say 99% of the time. Pretty much. Again, I'm going to start a playlist of what it's like living in the Philippines, and the times when we're not attached to the hip. But the 13G visa cuts the umbilical cord. You're no longer attached to the hip. You both can freely come and go as you please. He has his own ACRI card that he can use to show that he's a permanent resident. So I'm super happy that he has that freedom to do whatever that he needs or wants to do. There is, now I researched this, and somebody said, because I'm a permanent resident now, I can now possibly start working on my dual citizenship without restrictions. I don't know if I want to go through that. Before, there was a part of me that it was part of me like an identity thing. But now that I have my permanent residency, I don't know if it's something that I personally, emotionally need. But I would have to investigate more on that, but I don't know if I will. But I heard that it's a possibility. I just don't know. I don't think it's an option for me, because I still think that because my birth certificate does not have my birth mother's birth date, which I don't know. I still don't understand why they didn't do that. I still don't think it applies to me. So good. I'm glad I emotionally worked through that for you on this video. And also, it's the benefit for this 13G is being able to connect to the Philippines, to be able to be in a community like living in Lipa. Every community where we've lived in Intramuros, Makati, Parañaque, now Lipa, has been a godsend for us. To have that sense of community, to be immersed in the Filipino culture, has honestly been everything that my heart has wanted my entire life. And I didn't even realize it is something that I wanted. Okay, I need to focus on this. So what documents are required for the 13G visa? Now, check out all of my previous videos, because they give you every single document that you needed for every step of the way, honestly. But to start off, get an apostle for everything you can possibly get an apostle for before you even come to the Philippines. That's number one. Make sure you have your Filipino birth certificate from PSA Servilis and keep the receipt attached to it. Keep all receipts, FYI. Your United States passport. Make sure your marriage license, if you have a spouse, if you have children, make sure you have their birth certificates. And you definitely will need to write a letter explaining why you want a 13G visa. And you don't have to be complicated like me of going through your life story. They just need a simple letter of why. I mean, I did my life story because it was kind of complicated, but they just want to know why. Okay? That's it. Keep it simple. It can be one paragraph. I did a dissertation because it was complicated. Even JRC, the visa agency, said, yeah, that's complicated. But anyway, you don't have to complicate things. So for every step of the way, just watch some of my previous videos. I try to be as detailed as possible. So what are the requirements to obtain the 13G visa? Again, previous videos will help. How long does it take to finalize the 13G visa process? My last video, the one before this one, I talked about that. I went through the time frame, and then I talked about the pros and cons of using a visa agency. We used the one located in Manila. Truly a short distance from the Mall of Asia. So of course we always went and visited the Mall of Asia when we had to go visit the JRC's office. Anyway, can you hold only, my question was before, can you hold only one visa at a time? Yes, you can only have one visa at a time. Like I had a Balikbayan visa prior to my 13G visa. And if you watch a previous video that I'd done, I had to cancel my Balikbayan visa before they could then issue my 13G visa. Okay? So if my husband decides to get an SRRV visa, he has to then cancel his 13G visa before he can get his SRRV visa. I know, it's complicated, but you can only have one at a time, FYI. Where do you receive all of your documents, passports, and new cards? Because at the time, we didn't know if we had to go to the Bureau of Immigration to get all of that. Because we worked through a visa agency, we just received all of that through the visa agency. And it was super nice because then we could meet our team and be able to say thank you to our team. So it was super nice to be able to do that. But if you don't go through the agency like we did, then most likely you'll have to go to the Bureau of Immigration office. What should my husband do if something happens to me? So he's going to have to immediately apply for the SRRV visa, or according to the information I got, it said a quota visa. So I'm not, some other visa to be able to be in the Philippines. Because the 13G visa does not apply unless I'm alive. FYI. I have to be alive for him to be able to have the benefit of the 13G visa. And he wants nothing to happen to me. FYI. Will our USA passports have a stamp indicating our 13G visa status? Yes. So not only do you get an ACRI card, it's a yellow card. My Balikbayan visa was a red card, so I now have a yellow card. In our passport, there's 2 pages that are stamped. One stamp I think the stamp came from the Bureau of Quarantine, our medical clearance, and then a different stamp was the actual visa stamp. Now, I will say, I did not ask this question, but it just made me think of, I watched another video that if I have to renew my passport, okay, if I have to renew my passport in the United States, I need to make sure when I travel, I not only have my new passport, but my old passport as well, if it has the stamp. That's what I was told. That's one YouTuber's version. But I think because I have an ACRI card, I should be fine. But my anxiety heightened just a moment thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't ask that question. So I might have to ask that question. If not, research it yourself of what you're going to need to do, because that's something you need to consider. What do you do when you get a new passport? What are you going to have to do? So that might be a question you might have to ask later on for yourself. And for me, I don't think I have to update my passport until not 10 years, but maybe in 8 years. I've got 8 years. I've got some time. Anyway, so next question. Can my husband travel in and out of the country without me, or will he need me to travel with him? I already answered that question. Umbilical cord is cut. He can travel anywhere he wants without me, in and out of the country, which is nice. If we decide to return to the United States for a visit, how should we prepare for that trip? Like an exit clearance or whatever. And the response was, when leaving the Philippines, you'll need an exit clearance certificate, ECC, and for entry, then we'll just follow our normal other expectations for re-entry. Basically what I talked about, I think in the previous video when we came to the Philippines. I will still, because I have trust issues, it's personal, I will still carry my PSA Surveillance birth certificate and my marriage license along with my passport and my ACRI card, just because of my trust issues. But I don't think you need to be as anal retentive as me. I don't think. I will just know for sure the first time we travel, and when I just hand them my United States passport with just my ACRI card and wait to see if they ask for anything else. That is the moment I'll know I won't need anything else. That's when I'll feel like, okay, I trust the system 100% when I do my re-entry. That's when I'll know. Okay, so the other thing is, when returning to the Philippines, will we follow the same expectations under the ballot buy-in visa? Blah, 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 blah. Nope. Because my husband has his own ACRI card, then he can come and go as we please. I think this is like the third time. I swear, I was super, super nervous. I asked this question so many different ways, obviously, because I wanted to make sure that they truly understood what I was asking. So, sorry. It was a question I asked in different ways. With the new ACRI cards, will we have to check in on an annual basis? That is a yes. So, here's all the responses for that. Reporting must be done annually to avoid fines or penalties. Starting, for us, January 2025. So we just received our cards November 2024. So we're going to need to report January 2025, and then we'll do that every year. And it says we have to report to the Bureau of Immigration to update our personal information and make sure this is completed the first 60 days of the year. Okay. I'm going to do it within the first month of the year. I'm not doing it 60. I'm doing it the first month. And most likely If you know me, the first week, that's going to be taken care of. It will be in my calendar, and I won't be able to take it off my calendar until it's done. I have to confirm my residency status. And I'm sure because my husband is attached to me, needing to make sure this chick is still alive, so his 13G visa is legit. I'm just guessing. And all of the reporting can be done online. So the next thing is, does the 13G visa need to be renewed? And on your yellow card, yes, there's an expiration date. So for us, it's 2029. So the ACRI card, my yellow card, will expire in 5 years. So it's kind of like, in my mind, like a driver's license. You have to renew the card, so it's no big deal. Be sure any documents used for the 13G visa approval are updated, like our passports. I will also need to make sure that my PSA Surveillance birth certificate is updated. I don't know if I mentioned this or not before, but your PSA Surveillance birth certificate has an expiration date, and I think it is also 5 years. So I got that in 2021, I believe. So I think I'm going to need to update that in 2026. I better put that on my calendar. Okay, the other thing. The other response was, be sure to comply to the requirements and regulations to maintain permanent residency status. Okay, we're not criminals, so we're going to make sure we live just a relaxed, clean life as retirees in the Philippines. No worries on our end. Can I apply for a Philippine passport? And basically, no, I'm considered a foreigner still. Just because I am a former Filipino, I'm naturalized in the United States. I'm still a foreigner, no matter what. There's nothing that I can do unless I get dual citizenship, which I truly don't think I can do that. I don't know how many times I have to go through. I've already worked through this during this video. I'm not going to do it again. Okay. Is there any reason why a 13G visa would be denied? Okay. Incomplete or incorrect documentation. So before you even start the process, double check the information. If you remember, every time we did biometrics with any of the agencies, they will always show you their computer screen. And your job is to check the information on everything. And if anything is incorrect, they can deny you that visa. Any of it. So be prepared. Double check, triple check. A good example, we were going through our visa application, and my birth name was misspelled, needed that fixed. I think there was a mistake on our address, so there were a number of errors. So I checked my documents, all of my documents. There were about 3 to 5 pages of the application, my documents, and then all of my husband's documents, making sure our middle name was correct, everything spelled correctly. Nothing can be wrong. So nothing. I can't even tell you how important that is. Nothing can be wrong. And make sure you are on time for everything. Because if you don't show up on time, you can be denied that way too. No criminal history. No immigration violations. Making sure if you can't financially support yourself, you can be denied. Not even yourself, your dependents also. If you don't have enough money, they can deny you. What else? If you have health issues. Now, I don't know what constitutes a health issue that you couldn't, like, we didn't have COVID. We didn't have some, like, I don't know, some type of illness that would then harm other Filipino citizens. So in my mind, I think that's what that means, personally. But I don't know. I haven't seen a list specifically telling me what the health issues could be, but that's what I'm guessing. That's my guess. And for the 13G visa, this not excuse me, this might not pertain to other visas, but for the 13G visa, if I can't demonstrate my ties to the Philippines through my letter, through my birth certificate, then that means I could not apply for the 13G visa. It would mean I would have to apply for a different visa. So, super important, I had to prove that I have some type of tie to the Philippines. The letter that I wrote, I actually wrote 2 letters, to be honest with you. One letter was the letter of intent of why I wanted a 13G visa. The second letter I also submitted was the complicated backstory of where I was born, the adoption, the searching for my birth mother, all of that was a separate letter. Most people don't have to do that. I personally did that because it truly shared my tie to the Philippines and why I wanted to come back, because the possibility of finding my birth mother. Obviously, it is still important to me. I feel it is more important to me than becoming a dual citizen, but that is something that I don't know how to start with that. But that's a whole nother video. Anyway, and then my birth certificate. Thank goodness my birth certificate, that I got a copy of that. Other questions that I still personally need to investigate. I mentioned maybe 1 or 2 already, but are there post-arrival services for Filipino immigrants? Now, I saw that on one site explaining 13G visas and the benefits, but get language courses, having that available, orientation programs, and some networking services. I have no clue. All I saw that was listed on a website, but I haven't gone out and confirmed them. So if I truly feel compelled to do this, I'll investigate. I'll post it here, but most likely I'm not going to, because I'm already taking care of it myself. And I basically share it here on YouTube if I do something like that. But I don't know if there's something through the government, the Philippines government, if they offer something or not. This website said that there are services, I just don't know what they are. The other question is, if we live in the Philippines for a certain number of years, can we apply for Philippine citizenship? And I'm not talking about dual citizenship. I mean, maybe I kind of am, but I read somewhere that if you're here, living here for a certain number of years, that you can just apply for Philippine citizenship where you're not considered a foreigner anymore. Like YouTuber becoming Filipino, he did. I think that's what they're talking about. That's my guess, is that's what they're talking about. I'm not going through all that. But it's super cool. It's maybe something to consider, but I don't know. But anyway, for now, this is my last video for this playlist. unless my husband decides to start researching about the SRRV visa. But honestly, that's not going to happen for another 2 or 3 years. So for now, I am so glad you listened to my journey as we were figuring out our permanent residency and acquiring the 13G visa. So I look forward to posting living in the Philippines under a new playlist. So thanks so much for hanging out, and I'll catch you later. Ciao.